Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. The Magi here, and well, what if I told you you have decks that you don't even know you have? Today we're going to be talking about a crystal ball of sorts to help you unlock the hidden value in your collection and get even more value for your invested wildcards. But before we get into all that, just a quick reminder that the Stronghold is producing content for you across a number of platforms. And Patreon has recently introduced an option where you can follow our content there without the need for any financial commitment. So even if you aren't ready to support the Stronghold is better positioned to support you. So you never miss out on a thing. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Now, today I want to talk about a deck commonly being referred to as Bant Beanstalk. And let me be clear, this is not my deck list. It's not something that I have even done a budget revamp for. This is just a straight meta deck. It's a little less than 1% of the meta, so still kind of a sleeper. But a 60% win rate and surprisingly budget approachable for those that have been following the plan for a while. And that's the main thing I want to talk about today. Alright, so Bant Beanstalk is a deck that I just kind of stumbled across looking at some various social medias and things like that. And this is the list downloaded directly off of EtherHub. I've made no changes whatsoever, just uploaded it into my primary account. And I have taken the liberty of reorganizing what we've got going on here. The first column is the commons that are prevalent in the deck, then the uncommons. Third column is, of course, the rares, then mythics. Then you've got your lands that are, well, pretty easy to come by. Your basics, your one of legendary lands from Kamigawa, things like that. And then the final column is the lands that are a little harder to come by, might be a bit more of a challenge for people. And as you can see, without investing a single wild card in this deck, just having followed the plan over the last couple of years, I own this deck just accidentally. Even the mythics, there's 5 planeswalkers in here, and I have all of them with no wildcard involvement. I've got most of the land base, things like that. If you were to play this in Type 3 and look at the sideboard, I'm still only missing an additional 3 cards there. And when we take a different view of the main deck, you can see at this point I'm missing 1 copy of Sunfall, 1 copy of Leyline of Binding, so 2 rare wild cards. And then when you get into the land base, I'm missing a couple of the tri-lands, I guess is the best term. More specifically, 3 of the Jetmir's Garden and 3 of Sparrow's Headquarters. So a total of 8 rare wild cards, and I would have this meta playable deck off the rack. I think there was another 3 in the sideboard there, which may or may not be necessary, because to be honest, most of the time I'm a best of 1 player anyway. The point here is that following the plan will lead you to places that you don't expect, and you're better prepared for those than you might have thought you would be. We have always talked about ways to make your land base less expensive, so I tend to not think about these too heavily. This particular deck, of course, is a little more particular about the lands because it needs the basic land types, the mountain, forest, plains, island, swamp. And that's all because Leyline of Binding. But many times I stumble into a deck like this and I'm putting, the 1 rare wild card into Sunfall, another into a card like Leyline of Binding or something like that. I'm budgeting down the land base and I'm getting a meta deck for 2, 3, maybe less than 6 wild cards pretty much all the way around. And that's the real value of the plan, is things that you don't expect to happen or you don't see coming, but nonetheless, you are prepared to better tackle meta decks and create those meta decks from your own collection without even having intentionally prepared for it. One of the tools that I use and highly recommend, but yet probably don't talk about enough, is the MTGA Assistant by the fine folks over at EtherHub. This basically will help you track your collection and correlate it to things like meta or budget decks. I also use EtherHub to store all my deck lists and things like that. You'll find links for it in just about every video that I make. The tool that I wanted to talk about today is actually in the collection subcategory here. And if you go in there, it's going to show you your stats on how many cards you own and things like that of various play sets. But what we're really after today is the subheading here, the Deck Advisor. And what this does is it actually bumps this against EtherHub's database and your collection, and will show you all the decks that you already have the cards for. And as you can see, just scrolling down here, for me, that's a lot because, you know, I've been following and developing the plan since, well, nearly day one on Arena. And once you get past the decks that you have everything for, it will recommend and identify decks that you're very close to. I have this in order by number of wildcards. So for instance, this historic brawl deck, I am missing one common, one uncommon, and it goes on and on and on and on. You see, we got all the way to here before I hit a deck that I needed 2 cards to make. And not only does this help you identify decks that you already have that maybe you just didn't know existed, it also will help you identify decks that you're very close to, could make a small investment in, and maybe increase your playable enjoyment of Arena. The tool overall is pretty nice. Of course, you can go in and select what individual format you might want. You can filter it by colors, whether it's a top meta deck or a most played deck, the difference being win percentage versus saturation. You can also go in and instead of looking at it in order of wild cards that you need, you can also look at it by percentage. I highly recommend this because so many of us have decks that we don't even know we have, or we could have decks with just a small investment of wild cards there. The sheer number of decks that you can pick up once you've been doing this for a little while for 1 or 2 wild cards is just astounding. And very often, like if you pick this up or this up, that one wild card, in fact, there's a perfect example, that's the same wild card. So for one Cityscape Leveler, I have basically finished 2 Brawl decks. And stuff like that is going to happen a lot. And if you periodically go through and identify some of these 1s and 2-ofs, what you'll find is that some of these 4, 5, 6 wildcard needed decks, wow, I can't even get down that far. Okay, we made it to 4. I'm about a third of the way through the archive at this point. A lot of these 4, 5, 6 wildcard decks then become 1 or 2 wildcards. And if you eliminate formats that you're not interested in and things like that, you can really start to increase your arsenal of playable decks very, very quickly. And all of that starts and becomes so easy by doing something like following the plan and making sure you're getting those commons and uncommons while they're available to you for free through packs at very low cost through things like value quick drafting, rather than years later than having to invest wild cards to get those same components into your collection. And before we go, the Stronghold would like to take just a moment to thank our very supportive patron community, as well as recognize the newcomers Martin and Nick, who have decided not to miss out on a thing by capitalizing on Patreon's free content offerings.
And of course, supporting the community by liking, commenting, subscribing, or sharing our videos is always appreciated. And you will appreciate subbing to the channel so you never miss out on a thing. And of course, we have some suggestions here on the next videos that you're going to want to check out.